8:45 p.m. Then we're going to have some entertainment. Remember, as I said, we're going to be having Faye Nagitu, the phenomenal woman, and Jerai performing for us right on this stage. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Mic check, 1, 2. Mic check. Check it.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Happy International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day.
Karibuni sana to our session. This session is hosted by KEWOPA, which is the Kenya Women Parliamentary Association, co-hosted with the Danish Embassy in Nairobi. And we'd like to begin. We do have some programs just to show you what we're expecting, but we'll be discussing about inspiring inclusion, which is based on the current theme of the International Women's Day. So karibuni sana, feel at home. We will try to make it as an interactive panel as possible. We don't want the panelists to talk to you. We want to also listen to the people. So as we await for our Deputy Chairperson, Honorable Elachi, I'd like us to have Thomas, who will be representing the ambassador. The ambassador has just been called for a quick appointment, and he has, of course, to carry out his duties. So we have a representative from the Danish Embassy who will give the remarks before he also steps out, and then we can pick up the conversation. So, karibu, Thomas. I'll be assisted by my co-moderator here, who is Dorcas Langat. When we talk about inspiring inclusion, how are we also including young women in spaces like this? She's a student and she will also introduce herself. So karibuni sana, Thomas.
Thank you so much, Mercy, and good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Pleasure to see you, and thank you for being quite timely each for the ambassador. So for me, it's going to be very easy to to deliver it to you. And in my speech, I have two things I'd like to show you. One is a lipstick. It's here. Thank you, Halima, for it's not mine, it's Halima's, but it is a lipstick. The other one is a painting. This lady here, and I'll tell you a little bit about her in a while. So the painting and the lipstick are two key components of what I want to share with you all. But first of all, let me thank KEWOPA for agreeing to co-host the event here together with us. For us, International Women's Day is always a cause, most of all for celebration, but also to take stock of where we are. Before we focus on Kenya, discuss Kenya, I'd like you to take a little quick trip to the country that I represent with my colleagues here. Denmark. Often, when I talk to people here and talk about Denmark, people think that in Denmark we're all equal. It's like heaven, gender equality, and there are no issues left. But it is true that in many aspects, men and women, girls and boys in Denmark have the same opportunities, at least formally. But let me tell you, there are also pretty serious challenges in Denmark. Yesterday, I was looking at a book written by our former Prime Minister. Her name is Helle Thorning-Schmidt. She was elected not many years ago as the first female Prime Minister of Denmark ever. being called Bushel. And the question is, how many male prime ministers have been named after their name on their handbag? Maybe not a lot. She explains in her book how she very quickly learned during her stint as prime minister that maybe I had to tone down my female side. So she used to use the lipstick a lot, but she put it in the back. So I'll give it back to you. No more lipstick. And she thought carefully about how she would dress. So in a way, how we interact. We men do it. Sometimes on purpose, sometimes we don't realize what we do. We need to think a lot harder about what we do, because often we suppress women by these stereotypes. Now let me come back to where we are at the EDF in Nairobi in Kenya. We are at the embassy extremely committed to supporting empowerment of women and girls in many different ways. That is enough to address. We had the elections in 2022. We were firmly behind the female candidates who wanted to put their candidacy forward for election, be it at MCA, at Senate, whatever, National Assembly. We also saw how, if you come forward as a female candidate, there's a good likelihood that somebody will say, but you are married. You should stay home with your husband. You should stay home with your kids. If you are not married, there must be something wrong with you. If you have kids, be with the kids. If you don't have kids, then there must be a problem, no? You cannot be a serious candidate. And often on social media, on TikTok, WhatsApp groups, whatever, these things are done in a much more harmful way. So I think it's fair to say that a lot of female potential candidates never become true candidates because they're afraid to put their name forward. It also goes to say, without access to resources, to money, it's difficult to campaign politically in Kenya. And it can be difficult if the meeting is set at 9 p.m. in the evening. It's not necessarily the time of the day where women are able to participate. It's another way to exclude women. But we are here because this year's theme is to inspire inclusion. It is to try and address those stereotypes we all have and see if we can do a lot better. So let me end by pointing to some of these women who can inspire all of us, inspire positive change. I believe that by studying their journey, learning from them, maybe we can move all our minds and have a culture where women and men are treated equally. Looking at Kenya, and now I'm afraid of being political here because I'm mentioning some political people. I'm not mentioning because I have a particular preference for their political party program or whatever. I'm mentioning Martha Karua, Charity Ngilu, and Amina Mohammed as examples of women. I have no opinion on their political program, but I have an opinion on the fact that they came forward and they made it as politicians in a very, very complicated, sometimes harmful, hateful context. That takes a lot of courage, and that for that reason I believe these and many others we have to respect. Another partner to the embassy, a dear friend, is Her Ladyship Martha Koome, the President of the Supreme Court of Kenya, the first female president. I think another source of inspiration. And the list goes on. My colleague Halima, seated right here, together attended the launch of the so-called G7 strategy. Those are the 7 female governors who came together yesterday in Nairobi and presented a plan for how we can empower and make sure that more women make it to important political posts. And now we come to the picture. The lady. So this lady, it says on top, it says, "Women who change the world." Now, she brings Kenya and Denmark together like no one else. Her name is Karen Blixen. Karen, as in Karen in Nairobi. She lived here about 100 years ago. She lived here from 1914 to 1931. Her life is immortal. She brought in the animals. She did everything. So cutting the hair for her was a way to be free and to be practical. And she had a vehicle. Not many people 100 years ago in Nairobi had a vehicle. She had one, and she had a driver's license, and it made her free. Maybe today, I think we have too many cars in Nairobi, so maybe hold back on the driver's license. But still, the point is to be free to do what you like to do. So, as I am near the conclusion here, I'm inspired by my former Prime Minister, by the Kenyan leaders we talked about, and by Karen here, to see if we can do a lot better. Hopefully, we will not wait another 100 years to achieve not just gender equality and the same formal opportunities, but really getting to the bottom of the stereotypes we all carry around. So let's seek inspiration from those people that I have mentioned to you, those women. So in conclusion, I call on all individuals, organizations here, to join us all, take concrete support and empower women wherever we can in all communities, be it in Kenya, be it in Denmark, all counties. And that way I hope we will have a more inclusive word for all. So with those words, I really thank you for coming. For now, the real deal starts. The strong panel here that will be introduced. And my embassy will be here with me all. I have to tell you one thing. I am first and foremost a father of a family. And today it's my son's birthday, so that's why I'm dashing away. So I want to be with him. Alima, Johannes, Amalie, other colleagues from the embassy are 100% committed to the dialogue we'll have here. I wish you a very good exchange. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have gotten so much words from him, and any comments or questions, please kindly raise your hand.
Hello. Sorry, my voice is a bit hoarse, but my name is Denzel, and I just have a question for you specifically. So speech writing is based on trust between the drafter and the deliverer. I ask that people trust that the questions I'll ask today are in the best interests of the African child. And my question for you specifically, number one, is knowing whatever plans that the Kingdom of Denmark has established to ensure its long-term survival in the coming ages, what would you advise a woman in Kenya who's less than 1 month pregnant, with a lot of black tax, baggage, and a mid-level bachelor's in public management to do, so that she can navigate her choices in the next 10 years, such that she'll have used the time that's coming through in the next 10 years to her advantage, even though she's carrying a lot of black tax baggage? What choices should she start being? You've told us the story of Karen, and she got to a point where cutting her hair was a brave, bold choice in an era where women cutting hair was not popular. I don't think it was a popular move. I think it was a bold move. So now, what are the bold moves she has to make, and what are the popular moves she has to stop making, so that when this child comes through in 10 years, when the child is 10 years, she can look back and say, I used my time as a mother of a child between 0 and 10 very well.
Thank you so much, and thank you also for paying attention, clearly, from your question. I'm an extremely strong believer in education. I think the workforce we have here in Kenya is one of the best educated on this continent. So there are good opportunities. Education, education, education. Denmark is strongly invested in health and many other things. But personally, I think that's my own kids have to pick in school in a few minutes. That is really the key thing. And then, of course, we parents, we have an immense responsibility to transfer good values to our children. But I think for her daughter, if it is a daughter, we men, we have a lot to do, no? Because we are the ones framing some of the issues and challenges that I discussed before. We need to do our homework. We need to work with our own perceptions, our own stereotypes. We are doing a lot of harm without even realizing it sometimes, because it's so deeply ingrained in us. So we need to think about how we can create a framework where women have better chances. But as a woman, never doubt, never aim high. If there is a position or a high school or university you want to go for, don't think, it's probably not for me, it's probably for someone else or somebody more privileged. You have to go for it. That would be my short, but of course I'm not naive. I realize it's a tough It's a tough environment to operate in. But still, believe in yourself, go for it. And we men, let's see if we can do a little bit better to help her along. That would be my choice. Thank you. I have one last and I need to move.
Okay, one last question from the audience before we release Thomas. Do you have a question? Comments? Okay, looks like you've done well.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Thomas and the Embassy of Denmark. So I'll do a quick introduction of today's event, and then we'll introduce our panel. Then we can start the discussions. I said we'll have a interactive session. So as you all know, this year's campaign theme for International Women's Day is Inspire Inclusion. But what does this mean? So Inspire Inclusion emphasizes the importance of diversity and empowerment in all aspects of the society. And this year's campaign underscores the crucial role of inclusion in achieving gender equality. It calls for action to break down barriers, challenge stereotypes, and create environments where all women are valued and respected. One of the key pillars of Inspire Inclusion is the promotion of diversity in leadership and decision-making positions. And you know that's our forte as the Kenya Women Parliamentary Association. That's why we wake up every morning to ensure that we have more women in leadership positions, both at the national level and at the county level. And that's why you see here we have a panel our panelists who are drawn from the National Assembly and the Senate, and we've also tried to bring in the other diversities, young women. Actually, I think we have a panel of young women, entire. Denita, we can also call you young at heart. Yeah, and so we are striving to ensure that as we talk even about the 2/3 gender rule, there was a panel earlier on this same tent talking about the 2/3 gender rule, and I had the young women asking and the persons with disabilities asking, while we are discussing the 2/3 gender rule, are we considering these other marginalized groups that the Constitution has given a right as well to be represented? So I think I'll ask Dorcas right now to introduce our panelists, then we can get on to the questions. Karibu sana.
All right, guys, so today is Happy International Women's Day, and we have very phenomenal women in our front. So starting from my right, we have Honorable Njeri Maina, who is women representative for Kirinyaga County, and she has been a member for the Legal Justice and Affairs. And she is very phenomenal and speaks out loud, and we love you for that. And next is Crystal Asige, who's nominated Senator for Persons with Disability, and she likes to introduce herself as VIP. You can ask her what that means in full. And she's also been inspiring inclusion by talking out and also bringing conversations which are always seen as they open up conversations in our country and also bring change. And we also like to hear more from you. And then next we have Maria Siombua, who is a law student at Strathmore University. And she also advocates for inclusion and champions for persons with disability and young women. And we will be hearing more from her. And last is Denita Gatti, who is former senator, and she has been very phenomenal. We've heard from her for a long time, and she was also part of the conversation that just ended, and we would like to hear more from them. So karibuni sana, ladies, and karibu the audience. You are free and ask many questions as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dorcas. Before we start the panel discussion, our deputy chair has arrived, so I'll ask her to just come in because she wants to go back to her event. She's currently running an event at Girls Secondary School today to commemorate the International Women's Day. So karibu sana, Honorable Beatrice Elachi, our deputy chair, also the member for Dagoretti North, to give opening remarks. Tumkaribisha na makofi.
Thank you very much, and first my apologies for coming in late. We have a function at Lavington Girls with all the girls and a few women, and but because today is International Women's Day, let me just first celebrate every person who is here, who has come into this world through a womb of a woman. We salute all the women, our mothers, our daughters, and we say that as women, I think there's nothing else we can give this world except to refuge the world by ensuring we bring to what God said, that child. I think that is the only gift God gave us. And we shall refuge Europe, because I can see they've gone in another world. So the African womb will refuge Europe one day. But having said that, I want to appreciate the panelists, and indeed all of them are my colleagues in the world that we are in, where we also work to ensure that we advance the achievements of women and girls in this country. And to say that where we have reached as KEWOPA, I think we can count the gains, but we can also say we need to achieve more so that we work together. And it's not just about women, it's about all of us. That indeed when we empower both men and women in this country, then we will find ourselves with a space where each person can really appreciate and say, yes, I belong to Kenya, and indeed I'm a Kenyan. And so today, as we celebrate the many, many women who we have rode on their shoulders to find ourselves where we are here today, the trailblazers of this country, we want to tell them, you've brought us far, but we know it is our duty now to ensure every child in this country will feel appreciated and it's able to achieve just the basic needs that we have indeed in our Bill of Rights. So as you celebrate today, look back and reflect. Remember your mom. I hope each of one of you called either your mom, your grandma, your sister, wherever you are today. If you haven't, please call your mom. Just get to know how she is, if she's at home. But then more importantly, as we go forward, we need to ask ourselves as a country, because it seems like women must speak and speak and speak and call for action every time they will need something. We are praying that we will come to a time where you realize it's not about equality, it's about equity. It's about what we can share, what each of us can do to make that space better. So things about equality, I always tell people, no. God knows why I have that strength as a woman, that I can carry a child and I can still go to the farm and I will carry water on my head and I'll come back and cook for you and I'll wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning to ensure you go to school. He knows why that woman was given that strength. And he knows why you as a man was given another strength to take care, to provide, to ensure, to love. And so as we celebrate, please let us ensure we celebrate understanding. It is equity we talk about, and therefore development is what we are saying. If both men and women are in the development space of this country will change. If women are in spaces of leadership, this country will change. And we have seen with the 7 governors the fantastic work they are doing in their counties, and we must celebrate them because they have started showing that when a woman is in a position, that area, that space will change, and young people will find a space to do what they believe in, to bring in technology, to bring in innovation, and have a space like any other person. So as we walk a journey together, I want to thank Danida for giving us that space. We say thank you very much, and we'll continue to work around this space so that we ensure, even as in Parliament, that we are able to bring in laws that are of a gender lens that can take care of this country. With those few remarks, I want to say, enjoy yourselves, think about Kenya, think about yourself mentally, take care of yourself, and we celebrate you, and happy International Women's Day. Thank you very much.
Asante sana, our deputy chair, and we release you. Thank you very much. I'd like to recognize our final panelists, Honorable Bridget Songok, an MCA from Nandi County. So I think we'll get right into it. First of all, I'd like to speak to Honorable Njeri, Honorable Crystal, and also the politicians. What do you think is the significance of having women in decision-making spaces and in bodies like in Parliament? Because why are we fighting for this two-thirds gender rule? Since 2010, when the Constitution was promulgated, we've been talking about ensuring that the two-thirds gender rule is actualized. What is the role of having these women in these decision-making bodies? So let me start at this corner. Can we have another roving mic?
Thank you. A happy International Women's Day to all the amazing women. I think for me it's the perspective of what women bring to the table and how they see things. I was reading this book called Lean In, and Cheryl says one day she goes to this executive meeting and she's like, oh, I need to use the bathroom. And they're like, oh, we do not have bathrooms. So she's like, do you mean that when you guys are having meetings, you know, no one needs to use the bathroom? And you can see from how she brings it out that women have a different kind of perspective. On the floor of Parliament, just the other day, we were discussing mental health matters and the emotional burden of leadership. And we were saying there's no desk in Parliament to cater for that. There's no maybe breastfeeding crest for members of Parliament who are women with young children. And you wonder, I mean, it is a whole National Assembly, and it is where the legislation is done. But we haven't thought about catering for women like that in the 21st century. I'm a young woman, perhaps maybe I would want to have a kid or two during my tenure in Parliament. I also want to ensure that I represent my people and aggravate and push for their agenda. It doesn't mean that I have to put one on hold to do the other. I can actually, and I have the capacity, and all women have the capacity to do both of them, but then they must be given the conducive environment to thrive. So for me, in terms of legislation, it is the
Thank you. Senator Crystal Asige is my name, ODM is my party, Mombasa is my county. You were told that they call me VIP kwa ground. It means visually impaired person. I'm the only visually impaired person in both houses of Parliament, with over 400 MPs, ni mimi peke, who is blind, and a woman, and a person with disability. I have been able to pass, so far, with unanimous votes in the Senate, 4 bills, and I have 6 more that I am drafting. Hopefully, by the time 2027 comes around, you'll hear that I have 10 bills that I have passed through Parliament. I'm also one of the highest performing senators in Parliament at the moment, ranked top amongst the top performing women parliamentarians. And that is some of the reasons why women with disabilities must be at the decision-making table. The things that I have achieved, the things that I am striving to achieve for the agenda of inclusion, of diversity, and of persons with disabilities, mainstreaming our community. That is the reason why women with disabilities must be on the decision-making table. Also, I moved a motion that discussed femicide in the country. I don't know if you saw a couple of weeks back, parliamentarians, women parliamentarians, dressing up in black to, instead of red, that is, on Valentine's Day, to commemorate and to celebrate and to appreciate the lives of those we've lost in femicide. That is a reason why a woman like me with disability needed to be on this decision-making table, so that I can push these issues that I believe in as a woman with disability, but also as a human rights defender. I've come from grassroots. I understand all of these issues, and I can articulate those issues because of the education, because of the opportunity, and because of the open doors that women have given me in the past, so that I can walk through and be able to sit at this decision-making table. This is why representation is extremely key. We can't have people speaking for us when we're not there. That's why I believe that it's extremely important for women who have any aspiration, especially if you are currently already in a political party, if you're already in the disability league of your political party as a woman with disability, for you to step out and to make sure that your anonymity is a thing of the past. You have to stand out. I can't see you guys. I can't see you. And that's why I had to make you see me. There's no other choice I had. Otherwise, you wouldn't hear me, you wouldn't see me, and you wouldn't understand the things that visually impaired women go through, women with disabilities are going through. And it wouldn't have given me this opportunity to be able to push an agenda that has been started by phenomenal women like Danita over here, our sister, our champion of disability. Without her, I would not be able to be standing on such strong shoulders to continue that push, isn't it? So when one woman opens a door and steps through, she needs to wedge her foot, tuko nyuma. You understand? If I move forward, I need to make sure that I open the door so that the next woman comes through. That's what Danita has been able to do for me, and that's what I hope to be able to do for more women with disabilities. And that's the reason, and there are many more, why women with disabilities must be on the decision-making table. Thank you.
Okay, Maria, you can also answer why do you think it's important to have women represented in political bodies? Same question, why is it important to have women in decision-making spaces, like in parliament?
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Maria Muneni. I'm a law student at Strathmore University, and I'm the only panelist without the honorable name, but inshallah, I'll have it. Yes, yes. So the question about inclusion of women in parliament. And I thank you for Crystal Asige saying about her leaving the door wide open for the others to have the opportunity to go in. So as for the youth and women with disability, the opening of the door gives us a way to have the opportunity who have given us the opportunity to represent themselves, and also who have given us the cries, the challenges they have faced since kama sisi the youths huwa tunasikilizana, and the youths have the umoja pamoja, which gives us the strength to push further for the challenges so that the solutions can come in. So in my conclusion is that having the inclusion for women in parliament and for the youth will really have the opportunity to give us the way forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Madam Moderator. My name is Honorable Denita Gati. I come from the county that is Migori, and I've been the Member of Parliament for persons with disabilities in the National Assembly. I served with Honorable Sankok, and I'm glad to see my sister here, Crystal, doing amazing work. And I want to thank Kewopa because mukiangalia hapa mbele, I think today you decided that it is women with disabilities. So patia hao makofi because sio rahisi uone women with disabilities ni Mheshimiwa Njeri tu ndio naona si hana disability as such. But that is a very good step. And I think it's also because the theme of International Women's Day is what? Inspire inclusion. Inspire inclusion. Yes. And there is nothing in inclusion if disability is not included. Because we might not, we might think that we are including, but we are not including. We might think that we are going with women, those women with disabilities are not there. But I want to really thank you. I served in the county in 2013 as the Women Rep Migori. 2022, I was a MP for persons with disabilities. And you can see, even within Parliament, the reason why even these 2/3 you can hear today, I can tell you that if we had more women in Parliament, both Senate and National Assembly, right now the 2/3 would be 2/3. It would already have been a law and tungekuwa tumeshamaliza hiyo chapter. We wouldn't even be talking about going back or calling a multi-sector whatever team to do. Women tend to think about their communities, about their society, about everything. I remember, because right now I'm not in Parliament. When I was in Parliament, I brought a bill that sought to make us, for persons with disabilities, and especially women who live in counties, who are caregivers, who are heading households, those women, and especially those with disabilities, must get assistive devices pale mashinani, so that we don't come to Nairobi to look for a wheelchair to get back to your place. So there is something that having more women in leadership brings. When you empower a woman, it is the normal saying that when we are empowering a woman, you empower her household. You are empowering her village, you are empowering her community and her society and the country. Women legislators, even where Mercy sits, in Parliament there, women legislators, once they get into the House, once they are elected to Parliament, they realize hapa ni shamba la wanyama. Unajua bunge ni shamba la wanyama. When you get into Parliament, you realize, there are so many men vis-a-vis women. And immediately Kewopa comes on board and says, you women, stop meandering around. Come here and sit together. Let us reason together, irrespective of political parties. That is what Kewopa does, and that is what Kewopa did for us. That is how we speak as members of Parliament. So many of these bills that you see zinakuja in terms of helping the girl child, in terms of helping women, in terms of looking at the issue of 2/3, they are pushed and spearheaded by Kewopa in the House. So there is something that being in leadership brings. Many women who sit even in parliamentary committees that are although in Parliament we say all committees are the same, but sometimes they are not the same. When you get into Parliament, you find there are committees like budget. The budget committee, there is PIC and there is PAC. There are committees, education is another, labor is another very strong committee where Mheshimiwa Crystal sits. And it is through labor that she has been able to pass a lot of bills that I have seen. So there is nothing like saying you come to Parliament without knowing what to do. Kewopa puts you in order as a woman member the moment your people sends you to Nairobi, so that you are able to quickly harness resources. When you look at members of Parliament that are women in the House, and especially who sit in critical committees like budget, like PIC and PAC, where Kina Millie Odhiambo sits, you will realize that the bills that really usually are brought to the House, it is easier for them to be implemented because there are more women in those committees. Wanaangalia, wanakaa katika zile meetings, and then quickly you allocate the budget to those issues in terms of maternity, in terms of everything that we do, education. When I was in Parliament, When I was in parliament, when I was in parliament that time, because right now as I've already exited parliament, I remember I also was championing issues of disability. I do sit in the board of the Center for Commonwealth Affairs in London right now, where I champion issues gender and disability there. And for me, what I have seen parliamentarians in those countries do is basically what we do here. They may not be a lot, but they do champion, their issues. So, Mercy, to just quickly stop, is to say that the more women we have, the easier it is, and it has been proven, the easier it is to pass bills, for example, in the House. The easier it is to, allocate, even in organizations where you work. In organizations that have women as CEOs, you realize that they kind of tend to have a different culture of working that tends to also mentor other women to get in. We have been able through KEWOPA, to ensure that we have gone to the various counties and constituencies to champion the issue of girl child and issue of women to get into parliament. In the budget, if you look at the budgetary allocations, and women members of parliament have been very critical to criticize even the budget, national budget. Where does the national budget go when it comes to issues of education, when it comes to issues of sanitary towels, when it comes to issues that are critical to enabling children, for example, get into schools? So for me, it has a very big advantage, not only economical, it has an advantage for the development of this country. So it is not just a matter of saying more women are in leadership. It is the impact. What is it that they bring to this country? Many of you who belong to political parties also know that in those political parties that had, for example, Martha Karua or Charity Ngilu, those political parties that have women as presidential candidates usually tend to have more women in those parties also trying to get into positions. And those are the women who also end up eventually also being nominated into parties or being nominated into the county assembly. So for me, it has an advantage of ensuring that we are helping young women and mentoring young women to get into leadership. Thank you.
Happy Women's Day. Okay, my name is Honorable Bridget Songok. I'm nominated MCA in Nandi County. I'm the director and founder of Warembo na Disability Society of Kenya. In Nandi County, I'm the only woman who has passed one pill for people with disability, and I'm working almost 3. I'm glad to be here. I just want to include what my colleagues has just to say, that women should be included in parliament or in decision making. But my concern is, if I were me, we need to scratch this thing called 2/3 gender. We need to do 50-50. Because we women, we can do more than what men can do. Especially, I'm really selfish today. I'm going to talk about women with disability. We women with disability, we can do twice as a normal woman can do. In decision making, yes, without a woman, nothing we can do. If you empower women, we empower the whole village, especially with people with disability. Another thing is, I'm so glad what President did yesterday, whereby we launched Council of Governors, whereby in Kenya we need to adapt, whereby if a man is chair or if a man is governor, we need to put a woman, and not only a woman, even a person with disability. We need to embrace it. Thank you.
So my next question, now that we've said why it's important to include women, I'd like our panel members to tell us, shed light on ways that we can inspire inclusion, that we can bring a more inclusive society for all, especially that there's persons with disability and there's women who are marginalized. So kindly shed light on that.
You know, I'm glad we're having the conversation about implementing the 2/3 gender rule, but what disappoints me is that we really haven't given capacity to the already elected women members of parliament to be able to showcase that women can actually perform once given the job. I was having a discussion when we were having the budget report tabled, and single constituency MPs, only 29 are female, 47 woman reps. That makes the 76 members who are female in the entire National Assembly of around 356. And what piques my interest is that single constituency MPs have a budget of around, say, 180 million per constituency to ensure that they are able to execute their mandate. County MPs, on the other hand, have a mere 9 million Kenya shillings per constituency to execute their mandate. These women are supposed to represent women, youth, and PWDs. And oftentimes we say that we have such a high turnover of county MPs. They are unable to retain their seats and come back to parliament. And of course, there is such a huge disparity, given that single constituency MPs, who are mostly male, get more than 180 million Kenya shillings, and county MPs get a mere 9 million Kenya shillings. I was asking, if you're having this conversation, how genuine is it? Why don't we empower county MPs so that they're able to match the job on the ground? You find that there wasn't much civic education done about the county MP seat. So in a regular sitting huko mashinani, you'll ask them, how much do you think I have for you? They'll tell you 200 million, because the understanding of the voter is like, you cater for the county. So obviously you have more than my member of parliament has. So I think beyond, and for us to be able to really have inclusion, is we have to bridge the gap in the disparities in terms of financing, in terms of pay disparities in our private sector. I remember a conversation about how far we've come as women, but how far behind we still are. You find that an executive director, the male and the female, are paid very different amounts. You'll find that our policies in our institutions do not enable women to just thrive as women. And women have children, you know. I remember I went for an interview one day, and discuss about 50-50 and all these other issues. We are not catering for the nitty-gritties at the bottom to empower women to be in this space and to just be women. Because at the end of the day, I am a woman. I am going perhaps maybe to have a family and children. So I want to be able to be in a space where I can thrive as a woman.
That's an example, by the way, of inspiring inclusion. When Honorable Njeri comes and kindly gives me the microphone so that I'm not left behind and my voice is heard. So that's a practical example. Thanks. How do we inspire inclusion? All right. On a personal level, let me give you a couple of examples. My mother was the first person to empower me, because she is the decision maker in my household, in our household, right? And she's the one who pushed me forward and supported me to make me know and understand and really let it sink into my head that I am valuable, I am deserving, and I have a future that is bright, even though I acquired a disability when I was in high school. She is and was a decision maker who helped me move to the next step. Now, when I worked after university in the BBC in the UK, there was a woman who saw my work in a training camp that I applied for and I got into. A particular woman who was the head of the diversity and inclusion department in BBC. And she saw how hard I was working, even though I had a disability, and I was the only one in that group of trainees who had a disability. And because she was a decision maker, she inspired inclusion by saying, that girl, that Crystal, we need to give her a job at the BBC. And that's how I got to work at BBC in the UK, because of a woman inspiring inclusion. After that, when I came home and I stepped more into my musical side, as you guys know, I'm a musician, right? Okay. There was not a woman, but a man who was for women in Sauti Sol. One of those members, I won't say who, but one particular member gave me a chance and actually pushed for me to be listened to and to stand in front of Sauti Sol and Soul Generation and be chosen to walk that journey at that time. That was a man who was for women, okay, who inspired inclusion. Also in the disability space, I used to work at a particular NGO, very popular one, and it was a man who was the head of that NGO who saw my blog. It was called Blind Girl Manenos, that I started speaking about the issues of disability, how I'm managing with my new disability now that I had acquired a visual disability. And that man brought me onto that NGO and gave me a department to run and manage, and that was called the Ability Program. And it was a man who was for women, and he inspired inclusion. Now, in politics, I didn't grow up dreaming of becoming a politician. I just knew that I'm somebody who is really for the underdog. I have a passion for putting people who are not seen in front so they can be seen and heard. And it was in my political party, in the ODM party, a woman who encouraged me and made me see that there is a possibility for me to actually be on this level. And she is the one who inspired inclusion for me to be able to sit here in front of you today. And so, inspiring inclusion, I think, number one, takes intentionality. You have to be bold and radical and not listen to other people who say, uyo, come on, we have better candidates, we have better personalities, we have better young people who have done other things, who don't have a challenge, who don't have a disability, who are not that different. Because we want to be inclusive, but don't let that person be too disabled, you know? Have you ever heard of something like that? Yeah. There are those who are disabled, but then there are others who are just, they're a bit too disabled. How hatuwezi wasaidia, surely. So I think intentionality is really important. Be radical and pick the person who looks like the lesser candidate, okay? And put them in the front. It's very difficult nowadays to find people who are intentional enough to say, hey, you know, kuna msichana huko nyuma. There's a particular person, bring her to the front. Number one, intentionality. Number two, looking for opportunities. Looking for opportunities to support a woman with disability. That's what I'm talking about specifically here, okay? So, I was in a meeting last year sometime with the trade envoy to the UK for, I forget the department, but she was a trade envoy to the UK, one of the ministers in the UK who came for a conference, and I was sitting on a panel with her. And she said in her lifetime, she learned a lesson whereby when she's amongst, in a group of, for example, a board meeting or a forum of this kind, and there is a question to be asked to the room, and people put up their hands, she intentionally looks for the woman who has put up her hand first. She won't look, if there's 10 hands and only one is a woman, she'll be like, can we have a contribution from that lady in the corner there? that's what she does intentionally, okay? So number 2 is looking for an opportunity to be inclusive and to inspire inclusion and step into that particular opportunity wholeheartedly, okay? Doesn't matter if it looks crazy or it doesn't seem like the right thing to do, it is always the right thing to do, to be inclusive and to inspire inclusivity. And I would say the last thing I can say for right now to inspire inclusivity is to make sure that when that person, let's say a woman with disability in my case, has the opportunity, you've opened up, you've been intentional, you've looked for, you've opened up the door for, and now she's there, she's in the position, she's on the platform, she's speaking. The next thing I would say to do to inspire inclusion is to make sure that she has what she needs. Because it's one thing to get me through the door as a person with disability, but if I'm in there and I'm not being given the tools that I need to progress, then it's just tokenism, isn't it? It's just ticking a box. It's just rubber stamping. Oh, we have somebody, so sis tuko fiti, tuko poa. No, take another step forward and give them the tools they need. Just yesterday, there's an MP, a senator, a male senator, I won't mention his name, who said to me, "You're so needy, Crystal. You're so needy, Asige. Why are you so needy? Can I have to give you a pen as well? I have to show you where to sign. I have to do this because I sometimes, I need something extra. I can't see, bro. What do you expect me to do? I have to ask for help. So when I ask for help, I'm told I'm too needy. But I have needs though, just like you have needs, I have needs as well. Mine are not more special than yours, even though we're called special needs. I just think that I have needs that are different from your needs, but all of us are special, and at the same time, none of us are special, because all of us are special. So this idea of, now I'm here, but I'm too needy, like, unahitaji usaidizi kila saa, you need someone to assist you, you need someone to travel with you, you need someone to open for you the door, you need someone, like, do not bring a person into a space just so you can crush them down when they're there. Don't do that. That is not the right thing to do. So I would say for me, those are the 3 things for a start that it would inspire inclusivity. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question, inspired inclusion. I would say me being here right now, as I have said, all of my panelists are honorable persons in representing us in Parliament, and I'm the only one. So having the voice and having the courage to say why you're here is inspired inclusion. Why? Because I am talking about the challenges faced by persons with disability, who are the youth, who are the marginalized. From the Article 100 from the Constitution of Kenya, we have the youth, we have women, and we have persons with disabilities. I am all those things. So being here is inspired inclusion. I don't have anything to add upon it. Since KEWOPA has given me this opportunity, is inspired inclusion for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. Do you know that by your coming here, you are inspiring? You are on coming here, walking and coming here to listen. And someone sent me a message. I've never seen so many persons with disability in one panel. You know, those things that we think they're just vitu tu za kawaida, they have meaning. So what we are simply saying, how do we inspire inclusion? This word inclusion, when I started talking, I realized that this word inclusion is not just inclusion, Mercy. Inclusion is that deliberate attempt. You know, you are just deliberately attempting to include somebody, to embrace. Many of you I know who are seated here, either you must be having a relative with a disability. I know where you are seated. Everyone is thinking, that cousin of mine. That's... You know, we have tended to think that persons with disabilities are on their own, but we belong to families. We as women, honorable members here, as you can see, by the way, you know, people tend to think that persons with disabilities should be outside there, isn't it? Pale River Road, tukifukuzwa na kanjo. That is a picture that has always been there. But we try need to move beyond that because the country also has tried somehow to be inclusive. This country, I have been all over the world. You know, I told you when I was in Bunge, I was the president of the Commonwealth Parliamentarians with Disabilities Network. The Commonwealth, 180 legislatures of the Commonwealth. I was their president, and I could move. There are countries in Africa here, you cannot even compare. We as a country have tried. Our constitution itself has really tried to be inclusive. It has tried. Mtu asidanganye. I've seen constitutions of countries. Go to Sudan, South Sudan, go to Mali. Those are not countries. Let me not use that bad word, but I can tell you it is the intention of the country or our own intentions in our homes. And intentionality begins also from our very homes where we come from. In your own homes, when we have a chance to take a child with disability to school and a child without disability to school, who do we take first? That one without, Sindio? Yeah. Because we think this one will run and come back. Now this disabled child has to wait. When we have no school fees, it is the disabled child who will have to wait.
Itaanza kumfundisha aje? Huyu anaweka hapo nje, wengine wanakaa kwa classroom wanasoma, ndio sasa mwalimu anakuja kuangalia maneno ya you disabled child. So there are things that consistently keep children
or persons with disabilities away, and those are structural barriers that we need to break. Sisi tukikuwa wengi hivi mnavyotuona, when you see many of us, is because we make noise. Even in parliament, we have been making noise. Crystal, unfortunately, she's a lone voice now on disability. The last parliament where I was sitting, we were 4. And we were making noise. Tulikuwa mimi na Sankok kwa National Assembly, then Gertrude Musuruve na Mwaura kwa Senate. Now, when my sister Crystal makes noise there alone, that's why unasikia other members of parliament can even say unasumbua. Because people without disability tend to think that disabled people have constant needs. These needs that never end. They just don't seem to end. But we know, at the end of the day, we have to be shown that we are included. You know, when we get into a forum like this PDF by CMD, by the way, they thought by CMD to come here. For us, the disability community is a big plus for us. Because initially, they have been going to places where unapita na wheelchair, unainuliwa, unapindushwa hivi, unaanguka, unarudi kwa wheelchair, unasonga. Are you seeing what I'm trying to bring across? Those intentional small acts that you think are not, those for us mean a lot. Because you move, you come back hapa, you come and sit here and you talk. Now, I go to Kenya Airways when I want to go to Mombasa. Accessibility. At Kenya Airways, they will tell you, atuna elevator. We don't have that thing that lifts you to the plane. Lazima wanaume wawili hapa, wengine wawili, mwingine nyuma, mwingine huku, mwingine anashika huku. Then you get into your seat. But that is not how things should be in a world that thinks around disability empowerment. You understand what I'm saying? Accessibility, even where you come from. Counties right now, persons with disabilities belong to counties. Children with disabilities belong to counties. How are your counties in terms of infrastructure? Can a disabled person walk straight, wheel myself? I go and see the governor. Many of our governors are on 9th floor, 10th floor, 6th floor. How can a disabled person reach the governor where a non-disabled person reaches the governor? Those are the structures that we are saying we must reduce. Those structures that make it difficult for persons with disabilities. So in short, what we are saying that for us, we will continue to make noise. We have been making noise in parliament. We are still outside. I make noise in the Commonwealth where I sit. We have continued to make sure that every person born, whether disabled or non-disabled, is included. When I come to a forum that I'm seeing there is no disability, I will walk there and you know the good thing with the wheelchairs, you just walk and sit there. So by the time wanashtuka, you are already there. this inclusion, if is not looking at it, we will term Parliament unconstitutional. You all know that Parliament, as we speak now, is unconstitutional because it has not met the 2/3 gender requirement. That is why we see the president is in panic mode. Anasema kwamba, oh, now we must look at the 2/3. The president is saying, going forward, the vice president must be a woman. Who tells the president that the president can't be a woman and then he's the vice? You know, these things, that's ideally, you know, the structural way that we have put things is that now the man is on top, the woman is vice, all the time, like that. So the president has a very good intentions of saying the woman will be vice throughout. But you know, we can as well be the president and then he becomes the... And for me, because I champion disability, I'm a very serious feminist, disabled feminist. What we are always saying, and we wanted to say, we are telling Raila Odinga, that is my party leader, that before he goes to the AU, he will obviously, you will see him here pronouncing himself very clearly on these 2/3. How do we ensure that inclusion is not just inclusion? People think that inclusion, young women, it is women, it is youth. Siku hizi kuna diversity ingine iko hapo mnaijua. That diversity that it has just come in is actually more even powerful than even the disability itself. Now, those are the things that we are trying to say. How do we make sure that all of us have rights and all of us must belong? So those intentional small acts that you do right from your own home to include a child with a disability that you have, that you are not hiding in the house, to make sure that that child goes to school and is seen by the other children. Those are the acts that we are promoting, so that we are moving forward and ensuring that we hakuna haraka. And for your information, disabled people will continue being there. Si mnakumbuka Sankoka akisema hiyo? You know, accidents happen. We don't want them to happen, but they continue. Like mine is accident. Lakini nikaingia hiyo club, na the moment you are in that club, that is your home. So you must make things beautiful for everybody. I have had the opportunity of living a life of not disabled, and now a life of disability. So I can tell when my rights are being violated. Na ninapiga kelele. So what we want to do is to make sure that we make the system very conducive for everybody to be able to work. I thank you.
As always, I'm going to summarize what my colleagues have talked about it. Mine is education and awareness. You create awareness to the community about people with disability. For example, when you see me pregnant, don't go shouting, say, who impregnated this woman? I have feelings, for your information. If I go to the pharmacy and buy condoms, I have feelings. So we need to educate people day and night about people with disability. And I'm very busy. Another one is advocacy and policy change, that we advocating for the policies and law to support people with disability. I'm so happy that Kenya, we are ahead, like Article 54(1), that every person with disability, we should have assistive device. We have right in education, right in health, right even in politics. Yeah, we people with disability, we should champion for leadership. We need to take space in leadership, especially women. Another one, we need to talk about providing resources like affirmative action. I'm so happy what my sister in Senate is doing, but sisi kwa ground fitu ni different. We women, we are not being given the affirmative fund, especially when you are nominated. Elected, they are being given ward development fund, but women bado tunakanyagiwa. So we need to fight for, the government should give us the resources. And also the community building. The community should embrace people with disability, especially women. My scenario, what I've encountered since I went to Nandi, because I grew up in Nairobi, and people could see me like, just say I made a joke and I went to fight for women rep, and just an honorable member told me, Bridget, yes, you have brains, but who will support a woman with disability? And I was asking myself, the disability, or my beautiful legs will make decision. It's always my brain. We have the community still not embracing people with disability. They feel like people with disability should beg, they are cast, like you are unwanted, we are humanless. So if you are here and you have a child or you have a neighbor who has disability, show love to them. We are human beings.
So thank you so much to our panelists. So to the audience, I'll be taking questions now, and then our beautiful panelists will be answering. So the first one.
First of all, I want to congratulate all of you for what you're doing, and we appreciate you. And to all women today, happy International Women's Day. And then secondly, I think there are different types of disabilities, and there's a certain type of disability that has not really been recognized, especially in Africa. I served in the US Army, and I went downrange. I was in Afghanistan for a couple of months, and I know, because I have seen what other people are going through, PTSD. It's a major disability and no one talks about it. So I think it's one of those areas that in Kenya especially, that we need to create awareness. Because in Kenya, kama sijui hauna tu mkono, you are disabled mguu, or things that are physical are the only things that people talk about when they're talking about disability. And I think that's one area that needs to be addressed, because there are a lot of people who are suffering, and they're suffering in silence, and we end up losing them, and because no one really cares, because disability is only disability if we can see it in Africa. So I think it's one of those areas that also, you know, people have anxiety disorders and several other things. Now, having served in the military, there are things that now I understand, because I have seen my friends take their lives, or you know, them getting in really bad situations just because no one came in time to help them. So what are we doing as a country to address those, and what do you think we can do to create awareness in that area? Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. First things first, I think we see inspiration in front of us here today, and happy International have policies in place to ensure that whatever interventions that we are making, be it in government, be it in the civil spaces, be it with the CSOs, that we're able to actually ensure that intersectionality is a part of what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. First, I'd like to be proud and appreciate the persons with disabilities panel that is represented here. Truly speaking, as persons with disabilities, you have faced a lot of challenges, especially those who have invisible disabilities, like my brother explained here. Personally, I am a deaf person, but if I go to the hospital, somebody expects to see my deafness. I don't know how, because my body is normal. And when I start using sign language, then that's when they realize it. So I think we should also consider more about invisible disabilities, because disability is not only physical, it is not only visible, but we also have invisible disabilities. Let us treat each other equally. Thank you, and thank you for the panelists for fighting for persons with disabilities. Thank you once again.
Hello, forgive my sound, please listen to my voice. This questions were drafted before anything, so they've not been changed because of the panelists. I stumbled. Halima was here. She gave me the pen and the paper. So I'm just asking questions from my heart, okay? And so I'd ask the panelists, please have the freedom to answer from your heart. No political consequences, no social consequences, no economic consequences. I'm just asking for the truth. And if the truth is incriminating in any way, please use the Fifth Amendment. I give you the freedom, okay? So my question is structured into 3 ways. There's an introduction, a mid-course, and then there's the final questions, okay? Please follow the trail from introduction to understand the full question, okay? So why am I asking this question? Because somehow women from the motherland are first women, then they are black, then they are mothers. They take care of their children after dealing with the charades, the pain, and the trauma of being a woman in an unequal society, of being black in a global architecture that's structured not for the advancement of the black nation. And then they suffer from not suffer, but before they become mothers, they have to first supersede the limitations of being black and then the limitations of being a woman. And then that's when you can find motherhood as a son. And so maybe just so that we have inclusive feedback in the question, if you are a woman in the audience here today and you feel like at one point in your career you've been asked to compromise between career and family such that having one compromised the other one, please say a loud yes so that Honorable VIP Crystal Asige can hear you. So we have 2 yeses that are true, so it matters. We have 10 yeses. Yeah, 10 yeses, okay? So as we continue, now that's the introduction to my question. The mid part to my question is this. Women have suffered a lot in the globe. Being an African woman has been made to look like double tragedy, yet it's a double blessing. How, you ask? African homes constantly need a credible mediator, and moms are usually that. Ask anyone who grew up with a tough father. Moms are also an avenue of provision in families which have no other options. Having your own child is the greatest gift God gives to any he or she. How does this become a problem for a career woman whose progression up the chain may be compromised by pre-existing attitudes towards women, especially African women, that have not been subject to review, reform, or storytelling, despite advances in technology? Narratives frame discussions which changes minds. In the past, children from African women were exported as cargo. African women were left behind as factories for more cargo. Education initiatives were designed to produce a child who could service any colonial administration that uses force or illness to acquire space on the motherland, rather than develop them into their best that life can offer them, whether or not the political climate changed. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm only pointing out gaps in the development of the African child, and so in extension, in the development of happiness of the African woman, and so the motherland. All these things you can Google. It's true, trust me. Now, that's the mid part. Here are the questions for each of the panelists, drafted beforehand. All I had were names, so I drafted it beforehand. In fact, the only person I knew beforehand, not in terms of personally, but whose story I've come across is her. And she'll be the first one I start with. Honorable Njeri, how can violence meted against women to silence them for any reason be avenged? Not revenged by pain, but avenged by law and justice, even if they're not MPs like you. My second question is to Honorable VIP, but first of all, asante sana for the political extravaganza that's going on in Parliament. If 10 bills is all we get from you, thank you. That's enough. So, Honorable Crystal, I call you VIP, but I'll call you a very important person. Being gifted differently is God's plan. How do we as Gen Zs ensure that our songbirds are paid in full, equally, irrespective of sex, gender, sexual orientation, or ability? The third one is to the Honorable MCA from Nandi. Nandi is the home of sports champions or something like that. We just buried the late Kiptum and the late Henry Rono. Which legislations can be passed to ensure that athletes never die poor because they did not understand the global financial architecture in sports? And last question is for, no, that's the last question. The second last question is for the former MP from Migori, Honorable Gati, who is now representing Kenya at the Commonwealth, by the way. How can one help a sitting MP or politician or even MCA realize that they don't need to be elected for more than 2 terms to have lasting impact? And the last question is for the law student. Let me just get her name right. Maria Siomboa Muneni, a young woman and a law student. Assume today God gave you the power and he enthroned you as Commander-in-Chief of Kenya. How will all be one?
Thank you so much. We have very powerful questions. So our panelists will be just saying they will be answering the question and giving their closing remarks because we are running out of time.
Thank you so much. I want to answer the question whereby about disability, because someone say we have invisible disability. When you define disability, it is invisible and visible disability. I remember yesterday someone asking me where I was going to sleep, and he told me, Bridget, I'm sorry to say this, someone has a disorder of erection. Is it disability? And I was like, I guess it is, because it is not allowing to perform something for you. I guess disability can be invisible, but first of all, amplify your voice. Talk about it. If you have invisible disability, talk about it. Come out. Some of us, we came out because of our physical. Yes, I know physical, but you know, if I walk the way I'm walking like Kabata, no one can know my walking style. But I came out that we have a disability called club feet, although it can be corrected at an early age. So disability, if you have invisible disability, come out. Depression is a disability. It hinders you not to do something. Come out, talk about it. My brother asked a question about Kiptum and athletics. I'm working on something. Thank you for touching me, because I'm working on something like we have people with disability who have won gold in Nandi County. We have athletics, we call Paralympic sports. I was among them. And we have a issue. I can't pretend we have a issue. Mostly athletics, they are not educated. And here you have run and pop, you unapata millions, you become confused. And I've come with something in a county that we need to have a financial structure. We need to educate our athletics. We need to educate about how you monitor your finance. I always say that even in MCAs, some have gone when they are broke, but you yourself, what do you want? You know, you need assistance. Like, I know most of MCAs that are out there and lavishing in poverty. You need to manage your finance. And I think that is the last thing I can say. My closing remarks is that we people with disability, especially women, tujitume. What I mean? Send yourselves. Sacrifice yourself. Don't sit down there and wait for people to give you pity, oye, oye. No. Be a strong woman. Love yourself. Huh? Like uchipende mtu wangu. Kama wewe ni mlemavu, ringa mtu wangu. That thing cannot hinder you in education, in job, in political arena. Put your head high. And the only thing you can do, worship God. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll be very brief again. And I want to just say that, you know, I am a woman first before I'm disabled. Sindio? I'm disabled first before I'm a woman. Yeah, woman. Which one comes first? I am a woman first before I'm a woman with disability. I think that is what is there. And what puts us together, whether you are a woman with disability, whether you are a woman without disability, is the fact that we are women and we champion the same agenda. He was asking whether if you are in, you should serve 2 terms for you to be able to realize, something. It depends. Everybody, no one wants to be out. That is why your MCAs want elections every time, and people who even serve 2 terms want the 3rd term, the 4th, the 5th, like that. Hata katiba ya Kenya ingekuwa haina hiyo ya 2 terms limit, hata president angetafuta 3, 4, 5 terms. That is how it is. But it is again the responsibility of the voters, you people, to know. You can tell a leader. Have you ever had sometimes you elect people, then after 1 year you are regretting why you elected somebody? Because now probably you have not received enough education, civic education. During campaigns everyone is I think, like, you might think kila mtu amelewa. Because that is why after electing an MP, after 1 year, everyone is crying, this is not my MP. This is not the person we elected. Because you didn't take time to listen to their manifesto. We as women legislators, that's why I started by saying, we have consistently guarded the gains that women have in the Constitution. Because we realize that women as a minority, because if you read Article 100 of the Constitution of Kenya, women, youth, persons with disabilities, marginalized groups are what the Constitution of Kenya under Article 100 refers to as SIGs, Special Interest Groups. Even ndio iko. So now what we do, we as few women MPs in Parliament, is to guard every space that exists in law that protects women. Because traditionally, women have been left behind. Persons with disabilities have been left behind. What we have been trying to do with the various laws that we bring on the floor of the House has been to try and bring the women slightly together. Bring legislations that protect women against violence. Try to see how do we, for example, bring legislation that protect children with disabilities to be able to access what we are calling inclusive education. That is what we are talking about. So that katika shule za mashinani, for example, you go to Ushago pale, you realize that even when we are talking about inclusive education, watoto wasome pamoja, walimu wasome pamoja, you realize that the teachers that already exist do not even have any training on how to handle a disabled child. That is why you see teachers or the education sectors wanasema watoto ambao ni walemavu wakuwe na institutions zao. Wapelekwe Thika School for whatever, wapeleke Kuja, where I come from, wapelekwe Kisumu. You know what happens now? We try to create a culture that exists that shows discrimination. That hawa ni walemavu, so they belong that side. These ones are okay, so they go to school in a normal surrounding. So what we as champions of rights of disabled children and women with disabilities do is to try and see how do we merge the two. How do we sensitize you, the people, to be able to understand that a disabled child and a non-disabled child can go to the same school and access the same education, provided we ensure that the new teachers that we are bringing on board under the TSC are teachers that are trained on inclusive education. You understand what we are saying? So we are trying to bridge the barrier that exists between people. That's why when we say we want to promote human rights, you have no rights that are different from mine. The rights are the same, only that the environments and the structural barriers that exist is what we want to try and reduce. Hiyo discrimination mnasikia hapa. Wamama walemavu, every time you see a pregnant woman unadhania alifanya aje? Ilikuwa aje akashika mimba? Those are the barriers that we want to remove and ensure that sexual reproductive health and rights that are given to you, who is not a disabled woman, and to me are the same. Because ukiniangalia hivi unaona ninakaa ni kama hakuna kitu nafanya. Ama kila kitu nafanya. Si kila kitu nafanya. Na wewe kila kitu nafanya. Na si tunazaa namna gani? So those are the things that we want to remove, because ukiona mtu mama mlemavu hapa those those are things we want to remove, so that we normalize life. The The moment you normalize life, you normalize seeing disabled people all over living a normal life like you, like your child, or like your any other disabled neighbor that exists. So those are the issues that we have been championing under KEWOPA, and I'm trying to say, can you help us sensitize people to understand what we mean when we talk about special interest group? So the special interest group is not just about women and youth, forgetting that we have disabled people that belong to that category under the Constitution of Kenya. You understand what we are saying? So we try as much as possible to normalize how things work in this country and in this era. I thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for the question. And so first of all, I'd like to say from the early 2000s, majority of students in the university or tertiary education, higher education, were mostly men. So I would say right now the percentage, the ratio between men and women in the classrooms is a bit higher for women. And so as for me, assuming to be the Chief Justice for one day, Commander-in-Chief. Oh, okay. Assuming to be the Commander-in-Chief, first of all, I'll say gender balance in terms of in the police society, most people who are in the higher sector are men, yes? So I would say that, and also there are men and maybe there are people who have stayed in that seat for a long period of time. Sasa kama sisi youths, we also need the opportunity to have the seats. We also need the opportunity to be expressive, to give the way to know what is better for us as the youth. So first of all, I'll give the gender balance, and also gender balance and the rights for both male and female. Okay, we always talk about women power, femininity, and the boy child also have the say sometimes. And we also need to hear their cry, because most of the time unaambia mwanaume unalia nini, you're in the you're the money of the family, why are you crying, and so on. So I would say men have rights to express feelings. They also have rights to say what they want to say in a good way. Yes, so gender balance and the right for women, men and women to express themselves, yes.
Thank you very much, Honorable Crystal.
Thank you. Let me try and be inclusive in my answers and try and answer as many as I can. First of all, can we just appreciate Maria? She's in the middle of MPs, politicians, and number one, KEWOPA inspired inclusion by bringing her on this stage, and she stepped into the opportunity. It's very inspiring. It's very good. I'm happy to be sat next to you. And also, my next reaction is, why didn't any ladies put up their hand to ask a question? Ladies. Okay, great. Thank you. And the other ladies, because we have more men that ask questions. I would really encourage you. Millie Odhiambo tells us all the time in KEWOPA, never miss a chance to get on the Hansard. That means never miss a chance to speak and contribute. I'll answer, I didn't get anyone's names because no one introduced themselves when they're asking questions. There was someone who asked about PTSD. I would encourage you to have a look at the Mental Health Act and tell me, I don't have my phone on me here, I would have done it as we sat here, but if you look at the Mental Health Act, tell me if you don't find anything regarding PTSD, and if you don't, please tweet me, and we can have a conversation and see what we can all do to make sure that that is not left behind. The next person talked about intersectionality. Honey, I am an intersectionality. I'm a woman, I'm a youth, I'm a person with disability, with an invisible disability at that, and also I'm single. We've been told here by the Danish representative that that's an issue. So those are 5 issues that I have to tackle with. The intersectionality is deep out here, but I have to let you know that me just being here on this stage, me being in Parliament, shows that there was somebody by the name of Raila Odinga who saw that there was a gap and put me in this place so that I can at least represent people with visual impairment, which is an invisible disability, and also the first person with a visual or a visual impairment or blind in Parliament. So there is an intersectionality within me just being here, and the bills that I've been able to push and what I'm trying to also continue to do shows that when you include intersectionality, many issues are baked into the legislative solutions that come with this kind of representation. So I hope that that is gives you some comfort. There was my sister who talked about, who is from the deaf community and talked about invisible disability. I want to give some good news. In my work with the Kenyan Sign Language Bill, which I am pushing, has already passed in the Senate and now is in the National Assembly with Honorable Njeri Maina and her colleagues. There is a provision to ensure that, number one, sign language is taught from primary school level. That is in the bill. So when passed and enacted by the President, we hope to see Ministry of Education ensure that sign language is being taught from primary school so that the deaf community are included in all levels of society, right? That's number one. Number two, I've been speaking and working directly with the chair for PSC. His name is Anthony Mushiri. He's the chair of the Public Service Commission, and I have pushed him and I have interrogated him on the reason why there is no cadre for sign language interpretation in the PSC. Why is it that you have all different types of professions that are catered for in the PSC and that work in the public sector, but there is nothing like sign language interpreters? So he has assured me, and he's working right now. I call him every week to find out how far have we gone with that policy change. And we are working together to ensure that we have sign language interpreters in the PSC as a cadre, so that number one, we have more sign language SLIs getting employment, and number two, we have public sector institutions with sign language interpreters right there. For example, education. Any public school should have sign language interpreters if this goes through and the policy change happens. In hospitals, that's a real issue. When a deaf person goes to hospital seeking services, they have nobody who is able to sign for them. That is a big issue, isn't it? And that will be solved when the cadre is added to the PSC. Number three, even police stations, right? We need police stations with SLIs in it so that the deaf community can also feel like they can approach and feel safe and seek for those kinds of services as well. So that is something that we're working on right now, and I hope that that also gives some sort of a solution for you. And last but not least, the question about bringing all your gifts to the table. I feel like it's really important to bring everything that you are and all of who you are to the table. Don't leave any parts of you behind. You know, we talk about SDGs, leave no one behind. I say leave none of yourself behind as well. I am not just a politician today, but I'm also a musician, and I'm also a disability rights advocate, and I'm also a woman, and I'm also a youth, and I bring all of that to the table. I leave none of it behind. You know how an example of that, a couple of weeks ago, I just released a new song called Tattoo. It's online, and it's got a music video. That means that just because Niko Bunge doesn't mean that I've left behind my creative side. And Madame here on my right is also a musician who's also going to give you some of our talent one day soon. We're encouraging each other to not leave any parts of ourselves behind. Don't think because you're a politician you can't do the other, you can't pursue the other talents that you have. You can. You just have to bake all of it in. Songa yo ugali, yote. Don't leave any of the unga without water. Mix all of it in, because that's how you're going to be unique, and that's how you're going to be unforgettable, and that's how you're going to be a change, a real change, and a real representation of all that you can be in the world. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Njeri, I'll give you 1 minute because I'm being kicked out.
Mercy. I see you with the microphone, I see the piano guy, and I do not work well under pressure, but I am going to respond quickly to the questions. Yes, the Mental Health Act 2022, which was assented to by the former president, does include and recognize PTSD, anxiety, and other disorders. What it does not do, it does not recognize it as a disability, because we still do not have the criteria for standardization of how severe the issue is. So Parliament is welcome to receive your petition in regard to that, and I can assure you that I will handle it on the floor. In regard to sign language, I'm happy that my sister has a bill coming to the floor of Parliament. I also have a motion on sign language being taught in schools, so I am certain once we discuss it, it's going to complement and set the pace for Crystal's bill. I've seen challenges in various schools in terms of infrastructure, and most of the times you find that people, or rather politicians, invest in terms of votes. So you find schools that are for special persons do not have the right infrastructure to support them, and that is something I am working in Kirinyaga County. My sister Danita said about integrated schools, which is very important because our kids need to know and learn that these are people who are part of our community and society. And like she said, accidents can happen to anyone. So we have an integrated school in Kirinyaga County that I have funded for a dormitory that will be built and fully equipped for those kids. Violence against women. You know, it's quite unfortunate that I suffered a very infamous incident last year, and a female top politician was involved, and I had to shout at the rooftop of the president's car to have those people ensuring that we bridge the gap. I think the failure in our system is in implementation, because we have the law in place, we have the Sexual Offences Act, we've ratified many charters, and we just fail to have a proper administrative agenda in regard to implementing issues regarding GBV. You find that our administration sector, the police, the ODPP, the judicial sector, there's just a miss in implementation and a lack of interest in ensuring that we protect women who are victims of GBV or potential victims of GBV. Recently, I had to march and storm a police station in Kirinyaga County after a minor was defiled by an administration officer who is a chief in Kirinyaga County. So you can imagine just how bad it gets. But I say that we use our voices. In my closing remarks, occupy your space. Occupy it unapologetically. I tell people I have no apologies to make for the space that I occupy in politics and in other aspects of life. And do not feel that you need to dim your light so that you can coexist with other people. Own your light, push the limits, because at the end of the day, we're here for a moment and we have to live to our maximum potential. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Njeri. I think quickly to summarize, I hear representation is key, right? I've heard that across board from all panelists, from the audience, and I've heard about different diversities, intersectional, looking at representation from an intersectional lens. I've also heard Honorable Njeri gave us examples of how we can inspire inclusion, and she talked about bridging the gap, including financing, bridging the gap in the disparities that already exist in terms of financing. She talked about pay disparities, access, reproductive health care. And I think most of the panelists have said that inspiring inclusion is intentional. Did we hear that? Intentional. And it starts from an individual basis. So what are you doing as an individual to inspire inclusion in your community, in your household? Honorable Crystal said her mother was a decision maker in her household. I always say every space you hold, you're a decision maker in one way or the other. So are you being intentional in including others? Looking for opportunities to be inclusive. And we've been congratulated today. We have Maria. I wanted to tell you very quickly, Honorable Njeri in the last PDF, is it the last one? No, in 2 years ago when we were at museum, she came to the Kewopa exhibition and signed our, you know, everyone the way you're signing in the exhibition, and she told us, you know, the next time I'm signing this, I'll be your member. So yesterday we recreated that photo. and she spoke it into being. So you're here because you're supposed to be here. So next time you'll be a mheshimiwa. We proclaim it, yeah? The other thing was on resourcing. There's a lot of financially. Honorable Crystal talked about tools for work. When we bring in, we're also bringing in the tools for work to enable them work. Yeah. Advocating for policy change and legislative change. We've already had some commitments from the legislators who are here. Honorable Crystal is already ahead. You've had Honorable Njeri has a bill in the House. What are we doing to advocate for key policy changes? Because sometimes some of these structural barriers are being barriers because there's no policy to effect some of these changes. And I think the final one is awareness. Awareness. Even some of us have learned a few things today, right? On inclusion. Sometimes it's so normal we don't think about it, but it's important to create awareness. And I like what the legislators are proposing about creating awareness from the not the tertiary, but from the grassroots, but also at our educational level. So thank you very much. Give a round of applause to our brilliant panel. Please give a round of applause to my co-moderator, Dorcas. It's part of Inspiring Inclusion, and I think she did well. It's her first panel. So thank you very much. As we close, I'd like to recognize Joytown students who, yes.
Asige talked about the Kenya Sign Language Bill. It posed some confusion because the Kenyan Sign Language Bill that is at the Senate is different from the one that is at the National Assembly. So now, the Senate, I know they have other bills. There is another one that was generated by Senator Gertrude Musurivo. So please, kindly, Senator Asige, while we are supporting the Kenya Sign Language Bill, support the one that is at the National Assembly, and then we talk about this, because we have a lot of corrections that need to be done in the other bills, especially the issue of employment of sign language interpreters. It conflicts from the proposals that we gave in our bill, because remember, for example, the bill that we proposed, we suggested that training of the medics should be trained sign language themselves, so that if a deaf person goes to the hospital, if you bring an interpreter there, I'll not be able to relay my message in confidentiality. So we are insisting of training parents of the children who are deaf sign language, and also training the medics sign language. So maybe when a child knows how to speak their mother tongue, it becomes very important, so that when they go to school, it is easy for them to learn any language. So we are stressing on teaching sign language. No, when the deaf people get surprised that when you go to school, the deaf child goes to school at the age of 10 years without foundation of language, so they lag behind. So there are several issues that we have pointed out in that bills, because when the children go to school, they face a lot of challenges because they have not learned the sign language at an early stage. So there is a lot of deprivation as a result of delayed teaching, and also the teachers who are teaching the deaf students. Whenever they have been trained, they have graduated, you realize that they have learned special needs education, but their signing proficiency is very low, because they'll go to maybe Kenya Institute of Special Education, they take the language course, the sign language course for 3 months. So those are the things we are addressing in the new bill that is at the National Assembly. So I'd like to invite the Honorable Senator to actually join us, because I know we have the things that were brought by the other Senator Gertrude that we had omitted in the current bill.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your comments, because that's something that has actually come up in the KEWOPA group as well, because both bills are being fronted by women members of parliament. And when you look at the parliament procedures, there are things like mediation between the houses. So I think we can also engage because our members are part of the ones who fronted the bills. So I invite you to engage. KEWOPA, we are open. We have an open door policy. Please engage us and we can see how to mediate the two bills. So I was acknowledging Joytown students and also Hummingbird Grassroots, who also helped us really in mobilizing some of the panelists. So thank you very much, and thank you very much, participants. Thank you, Danish Embassy, as well for hosting this with us. And asanteni sana, happy International Women's Day. I'd like, as we finish, to call an artist, spoken word artist, Palma, as we exit. Thank you very much. Na munipigie makofi pia.
Habari zenyu, mko fiti kabisa. Mimi naitwa Palma, mimi ni spoken word artist, natoka Dandora. So nataka kufanya piece ya informal settlement na unemployment. Karibu ghetto, ile place hakuna food, huku life ni mseto. Ile place ukikataa kuchoma na kuambia unaona moto. Karibu ghetto place, maboy kwa mabank hawana hata chwani, but wako na dreams za kudate mabombe. Ile place watoi wa mapank wakienda kupati, sisi tunakula msoto. Huku life ni hard, hatuna hata hosi na MCA still bado anadai ongezewe wodi. Karibu ghetto, ile place vijana wanaamkia mizinga, unaweza sema wanaishi ndani ya beehive. Huku ni place yenye mtoi wa ghetto first time akiona moto ya shule anasema amejichomea maisha. Na mademu penda kuvaa mini, not because wanapenda kucheza tennis, but juu vile wao upenda kuchezewa chini. Wacha nivae black juu life imeniacha kwa blackout, na juu nimeshindwa kufitini wacha nivae sandals juu of late niko na issue hata Twitter haiwezi kuihandle. Degree yangu inaomba kazi, chini ya kitanda kwa pilo iko karibu kumea mizizi. Hiyo pesa nimetumia kusoma, heri ningejenga zizi ni wafuge mbuzi. Though nina matumaini sitakuja kuwavua mikizi kwenye bahari, kwa sababu matumaini yangu school inatuma tumbo. Maybe mchuzi, nina ndoto refu kushinda Uzi. Si unajua story ya Lil Uzi, maybe angekuwa mchuuzi kama sio talanta aliyoanzia juzi. Najua kianze ilika upuzi, ndo akapiga mistari kadhaa akajua na ujuzi. Palma the poet.
Check, 1, 2. Thank you so much, Palma. Asante sana, appreciate that. Thank you. That was a conversation on inspiring inclusion. All right. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. As I said, ladies and gentlemen, we have some entertainment for you lined up this evening. My name is MC Amoke. Right now, I want to entertain you a little bit with DJ Carl 254. I have Zerai, I have DJ Dab on the decks right now. I have Zerai who's coming up on stage in a few. I also have phenomenal woman Fena Gitu coming up on stage in a few. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to have some good time. It's called the PDF. People's Dialogue Festival and hashtag Niform Nidalo. One time, my DJ, once you're ready, take me away. Right, as I said, if you can hear my voice, just come through to the main stage so I can start right away.